Greetings and welcome to Flanigan's Ecologic. I am your host, Ted Flanigan, and this is EcoNet News, Volume 26, Issue Number 7, July 31st, 2024, Linking High-Speed Rail. The Net Positive, California High-Speed Rail Updates. Most Americans have no idea that high-speed rail is coming to California. Actually, it is being built. And now imagine this, there are not just one, but two high-speed rail projects coming to Southern California. One is the California High-Speed Rail. It will link Los Angeles and San Francisco and is slated for completion in the 2030s. Many sections will be operational long before then. The second is Brightline West, a rail line being built to whisk passengers from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. It is expected to be fully operational by 2028. Now the two high-speed, all-electric systems will be linked through a section of tracks called the High Desert Corridor. Members of the High Desert Corridor Joint Powers Agency signed a community workforce agreement and a memorandum of understanding, creating thousands of jobs, smoothing construction, and preparing for operations and maintenance of the 54-mile transit corridor. The first phase will connect Palmdale and Victorville. Later, it will connect to the California High-Speed Rail Authority and Brightline when those lines reach their destinations. Meanwhile, in late June, there was a major milestone in the quest to link the state's two major population centers. The California High-Speed Rail Authority finalized the environmental approval for its Los Angeles to San Francisco project, considered a historic milestone in a state notorious for holding up construction for environmental review. The authority's board of directors approved the environmental impact report and selected a route between Palmdale and Burbank, the last segment of the intercity route that had yet to be environmentally cleared. The last segment has been considered to be among the most challenging to build. It requires boring long tunnels through some of the most mountainous terrain along the entire route. The longest tunnel coming into the Los Angeles area will be 13 miles long. The 38-mile segment approved by the board has 30 miles of tunnels, 28 of which travel through mountains. Part of the route will be along Highway 14, separated from vehicle traffic and exclusively used for high-speed rail. Quote of the month: China is positioning itself to command the next big innovation in rechargeable batteries, replacing lithium with sodium, a far cheaper and more abundant material. The New York Times, April 2023. Zips and ZEVs. Nothing to do with the post office. This is all about carbon. ZIPs are zero-emission vehicle implementation plans. They are the result of detailed analysis and planning, including community engagement. They are all about making sure that there is and will be sufficient electric vehicle charging and hydrogen refueling infrastructure to meet clean transportation goals for zero-emission vehicles, ZEVs. They are also known as ZEV action plans. ZIPs carefully document existing conditions. They forecast transportation demands. They describe near and longer-term actions to be taken by governments in collaboration with the private sector to meet the needs of the growing ZEV market. ZIPs chart next steps in equitable ZEV and infrastructure deployment. The ZIP planning process features community discussions of needs, growth, and collective problem solving. ZIPs are intended to be updated every 2 years. California's goals include the target of having 1.5 million ZEVs on the road by 2025. That was codified in Executive Order B 1612. It was followed by a goal for there to be 5 million ZEVs by 2030, EOB 48-18. The state intends for 100% of all new vehicle sales to be zero-emission vehicles by 2035. This includes passenger vehicles, light-duty trucks, off-road vehicles, and equipment everywhere feasible. By 2045, 100% of all operating medium and heavy-duty trucks and buses are to be zero-emission vehicles. California's zero-emission vehicle market development strategy cuts across all sectors, presenting policies and programs to drive down transportation emissions. Public, private, and utility investments have played roles in deploying ZEVs and the charging/refueling infrastructure. Public funds have been used to accelerate deployment while ensuring equitable outcomes. California has allocated a historic level of $10 billion over 5 years to accelerate zero-emission vehicles and infrastructure deployment. Part of the state's funding commitment is filled through electric ratepayers. The California Public Utilities Commission authorized $2.85 billion of spending by the 6 investor-owned utilities that it regulates. The state has also been funding research on emerging technologies like battery swapping, wireless charging, and mobile charging units. Hemp, a climate protection superstar. Some say that hemp is a key tool in the fight to minimize the impacts of climate change. It's a biogenic material produced by growing plants. Like all plants, it absorbs CO2 from the atmosphere, locking it in carbon fibers, in this case, in hemp plants. Hemp farming began 10,000 years ago. Hemp was prominent and routinely used for rope and for shipbuilding. It was used for textile production. It was legal in the 18th and 19th centuries. But its connection to marijuana was its demise. Its production was banned in the mid-20th century, a function of the War on Drugs and the Controlled Substances Act of 1970. Hemp is a variety of cannabis sativa. Another form of sativa is marijuana. It has a strong concentration of THC, the active ingredient. There is a tiny amount of THC in hemp, and that was at the root of its demise. For nearly 50 years, hemp production was illegal in America, considered a controlled substance. In 2017, the U.S. government removed hemp from its list of controlled substances. In 2021, hemp returned as a legal crop, with the restriction that the THC concentration can only be 0.3% on a dry weight basis. It is still controlled in the United Kingdom. Today, hemp has many uses. It is used in clothing. Raw hemp fiber is made into panels and mats for thermal and acoustic insulation. It is made into hemp lime, mixing raw fibers with mortar and molding it into blocks that can be substitutes for concrete blocks, even in load-bearing walls. One of its greatest virtues is that hemp is climate friendly. Hemp grows much faster than trees, up to 12 feet within 4 months, a meter a month. Industrial hemp can absorb twice as much CO2 compared to trees. Thus, hemp is a great carbon sink. A hectare of hemp can sequester up to 22 tons of CO2 a year. Trees sequester about 6 tons per year per hectare. Can it also be a solid income generator for farmers? Florida A&M University recently received a $4.9 million grant from the USDA Climate Smart Commodities Program. Researchers are looking for ways to support hemp production. Hemp is good for soils, enhancing the activity of microorganisms like fungi and nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Its deep roots help to aerate the soil, prevent erosion, and enhance soil structure and fertility. It is naturally resistant to many pests and diseases. Thus, it can be grown with less pesticides. Through phytoremediation, hemp absorbs some heavy metals in the soil, detoxifying the soil. Hemp requires less water than other crops thanks to its deep roots. For textile production, the water footprint of cotton is 3 times that of industrial hemp. Thus, hemp is the sustainable choice, especially in areas of drought or water scarcity. You can eat hemp too. Hemp has a high concentration of fiber. It contains omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. Hemp seeds are actually nuts. Hemp hearts are the inside of the seed. Some people prefer the taste and the softer texture of the hearts, perhaps like wheat germ. Hemp is a superfood. Hemp seeds have almost as much protein as soybeans. They have more protein than an egg. 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds provides 9.47 grams of protein. Comparatively, an egg provides around 6.5 grams of protein. Hemp is a complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids. It boosts heart health and improves skin condition and joints. South Australia nears 100% net wind and solar. Renew Economy reports that South Australia has locked in federal funding through what's known as the Renewable Energy Transformation Agreement. The government there will underwrite 1 gigawatt of solar and 400 megawatts and 1,600 megawatt hours of energy storage to ensure that South Australia meets its 100% renewable energy target by 2027. With these additions, it will be the first grid in the world to reach 100% net wind and solar. Currently, South Australia leads the world with a solar and wind share of 70%. This has been enabled by new capacity and the new Project Energy Connect transmission link from New South Wales. This year, the new 412 megawatt Goyder South Wind Farm, plus several new battery projects, will advance South Australia to 80%, while the government's commitments will drive it to 100% by 2027. It is a net number. It is not a 24/7 value. The state will export power at times and import at other times. Its utility can fall back on peaking gas plants to fill in gaps in supply. South Australia is a renewable energy pioneer. It has advanced its renewable energy target by 3 years, now 100% by 2027. Meanwhile, there has been a controversy about a defunct coal-fired power plant. Some want to convert it to nuclear. It is now serving as a hub for green energy and green industry. South Australia is also building the world's first green hydrogen power plant at Whyalla. It will be accompanied by a 250 megawatt hydrogen electrolyzer with storage facilities, the world's largest such facilities. The national government's capacity investment scheme plans to contract up to 32 gigawatts of generation and storage capacity around the nation to reach 82% renewable power by 2032. Linear generators. Heard of them? They were called free piston linear generators for some time. Recently, the technology has been advanced by Stanford scientists and engineers. Now a new venture, Mainspring, is staffed by an exciting team, some of whom shifted over from Bloom Energy and its fuel cells. How cost-effective are linear generators? What are their benefits compared to rotary generators, compared to fuel cells? How do they stack up in terms of carbon? EcoMotion has done a similar third-party technology assessment for a college for fuel cells some years ago. This time we dug into linear generators. Most generators are rotary, but not linear generators. Each cylindrical linear generator core consists of a reaction chamber, 2 oscillators, 2 stators, and 2 air springs. Where gas-fired turbines use combustion reactions to impel movement, linear generators use a low-temperature chemical reaction. This low-temperature chemical reaction is increased by an increase in pressure in the reaction zone rather than by ignition by flame. Fuel and air enter the reaction chamber via ports. Air springs on the outer edges of the apparatus push oscillators towards the center of the reaction chamber and through the stators. And once the threshold pressure is met, a chemical reaction occurs, rearranging the molecule. The chemical reaction pushes the oscillators outward, away from the center of the reaction zone, until they encounter sufficient pressure in the air springs to make them return to the center of the device, completing the cycle. Electric current is produced by the side-to-side movement of the oscillators. These oscillators house magnets and pass through magnetically charged cylinders, which are equipped with copper coils and act as stators. The benefits of linear generators are multiple. They are relatively small and conserve a building's load 24/7. Unlike fuel cells, they can follow loads. They can run on a variety of fuels, and in the future they will run on green hydrogen. Our solar team modeled their use, drawing load profiles from 3 proxy sources. The financial savings are fantastic. Our analysis, using a number of load scenarios for the specific application analyzed, shows that the deployment of 2 units at the new facility would save millions, and they can provide resilience in the event of a grid outage. We found that when today's linear generators run on natural gas, they produce nearly 1,100 pounds of CO2 per megawatt hour. This is on par with similarly sized natural gas reciprocating engine generators. Fuel cells report emissions of 883 pounds of CO2e per megawatt hour. California's utility average CO2 emissions is 422 pounds per megawatt hour, less than half that of the linear generator value. So while linear generators have great savings potential using natural gas, they come at a stiff environmental cost. Then a fascinating assignment: could the deployment of linear generators provide both a net positive economic benefit and a net positive environmental benefit? Is there a win-win at hand? Yes, it is plausible. The key is offsets, credible offsets. Through an offset approach that blends community offsets with out-of-state, out-of-country offsets, big economic savings can be had, and so can environmental savings in which the community can be proud. Some may criticize the use of offsets and the voluntary purchase of offsets. In voluntary markets, offsets need not be certified. EcoMotion recommends to its clients that if this strategy employed, that high-value offsets are purchased or at least heavily blended. These are verified by third parties, allaying concerns of fraudulent claims and failed additionality. San Francisco's hydrogen-fueled ferry. It's a 70-foot catamaran. It can carry up to 75 passengers. This month, July 19th to be exact, the ferry began providing a free shuttle service between Pier 41 and the ferry building. The ferry can operate for up to 16 hours on a tank of fuel, traversing as many as 300 miles. The service will be free for 6 months. It is considered the world's first hydrogen-powered commercial passenger ferry. The name of the vessel is MV Sea Change. Its development and construction was financed by Switch Maritime. Its hope is to prove that hydrogen is a viable fuel for ferries in the Bay Area and beyond. The San Francisco Bay Area Water Emergency Transportation Authority provides commuter vessels around the Bay Area. MV Sea Change has fuel cells on board that combine hydrogen and oxygen and emit water as a byproduct. The intent is to demonstrate one means of transforming the shipping industry, which is responsible for 3% of global emissions. The International Maritime Organization has a goal to halve shipping emissions by 2050. Hydrogen may be one means to do it. There is an approximately $8 billion in funds in federal stimulus money targeted at figuring out how to produce and deliver clean hydrogen. Corryong Community Microgrid. Corryong is about 75 miles east of Wodonga in northeastern Victoria, Australia. It was among the Victorian towns hardest hit by the 2019 and 2020 Black Summer brush fires. Since then, Corryong has been in serious search of energy resilience. Soon, its 900 homes will be able to self-power themselves, thanks to a microgrid that will help keep the power on during brush fires and storms. The system will power homes as well as businesses and community facilities during a utility network outage. At those times, when an upstream network encounters a fault, the township will disconnect from the network and will fully rely on the microgrid battery. It, in turn, will be powered by diesel and rooftop solar for ongoing operations. Thanks to its 4.99 megawatt, 5.2 megawatt hour battery, Corryong will have an islandable microgrid. The system is designed to provide resilience in the form of power for up to 5 days. This is done using the battery with 3 generators. XX Solar will power the battery as well. The centralized battery and controls will connect 33 residential solar and storage systems. The residential systems will be installed with a smart energy management device known as Mondo Ubi, allowing the system to be integrated with the microgrid and virtual power plant initiatives. The microgrid relies on participation. A limited number of solar and battery systems were offered to Corryong residents. Expressions of interest were then submitted in January of 2022. Also included in the project is the installation of a solar system, battery, and diesel generator at the Corryong police station. Funding for the $28.6 million project has come from the federal government's Disaster Ready Fund, AusNet, and the Victorian government. The project is an expansion of the Community Microgrids and Sustainable Energy Program, which has funded resilient energy systems in 26 high-risk towns. Meanwhile, the Western Australian government's first renewable hydrogen microgrid was commissioned earlier this year. Microgrid Knowledge reports that the government and Horizon Power, the primary power producer in Western Australia, have released a report of their findings. The Public Commissioning Knowledge Sharing Report confirms the great opportunity for hydrogen to play a role in the state's energy transition. This, according to the Acting Energy Minister, Tony Beauty. The Denham Renewable Hydrogen Microgrid is made up of a 704 kilowatt solar farm and a battery energy storage system. It includes a 348 kW electrolyzer and a 100 kW fuel cell. its developers point out that the system does not use an inordinate amount of water, about the amount used for 4 typical households. Meanwhile, the microgrid will offset 37,000 gallons of diesel each year and will produce enough energy to power 20% of Denham's homes and businesses. Horizon has a 1.4 million square mile service territory. Much of it is remote. Horizon has built 36 microgrids and now will be taking over 117 microgrids from the Western Australia Department of Communities. One of its goals is to show that hydrogen energy storage systems are viable alternatives to diesel-powered generators, what it calls the time shifting of power. Thermal energy networks. Coming into my focus are thermal energy networks. Like district heating systems, thermal energy networks link users in a community system. They are a means of networking renewable systems, notably ground source heat pumps, to serve a community of loads. Each building taps into the network loop. The Building Decarbonization Coalition introduced me to this term. Thermal energy networks, or TENS, are neighborhood-scale systems that use underground pipes to exchange heat with buildings and energy sources. Waste heat can also contribute to TENS. It can be recovered from industries and from sewer systems. Think of this as network geothermal. Instead of serving a single load, TENS link sources and loads in communities. 13 states are now implementing policies and programs for underground thermal energy networks to reduce buildings' carbon emissions. These include Massachusetts, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, and Colorado to enable efficient, fossil-free heating and cooling. Framingham, Massachusetts, is the site of one of the country's first geothermal network pilot projects. Eversource, the utility there, has completed 70% of the pipe installation for its Eversource geothermal pilot program, a project north of Gleason Pond that will serve residential, business, and municipal facilities. The planned route of the network loop consists of 36 buildings, 24 of which are residential homes. In 2020, New York State mandated that its largest utility companies design thermal energy network projects with guidance from the Public Service Commission there. Consolidated Edison is planning to link 2 public housing buildings with a nearby data center in New York's Chelsea neighborhood. Waste heat from the data center will provide the building's heating, cooling, and hot water. TENS provide stability, powered with geothermal energy and waste heat sources. They are also seen as a new opportunity for professionals in the fossil gas industry. An article in the MIT Technology Review notes that a 55-year-old pipe fitter cannot become an offshore wind technician. But if instead of maintaining a network of lines to move natural gas, workers can now craft networks of thermal energy pipelines for renewable resources. At Eversource, managers see TENS as a new service that the utility can provide, providing a different service in a different way. Sodium batteries. Ions are particles with positive charges. Sodium-ion batteries use sodium ions instead of lithium ions to store and deliver power. Sodium is much more abundant and environmentally friendly than lithium. Sodium is safer. It's less prone to overheating and catching fire, but it has a lesser power density. We've reported on sodium before and will again. Also called Na-ion batteries, sodium batteries are cheaper to produce, given the abundance of sodium on Earth. Sodium sells for 1 to 3% of the cost of lithium and is chemically very similar. Given its power density, lithium packs a bigger punch, meaning that they deliver longer ranges. Sodium batteries also have a big advantage. They keep almost all of their charge when temperatures fall below freezing, something that lithium batteries typically cannot do. CATL has been experimenting with mixing lithium and sodium in batteries to get the best of cold weather and long-range operations. Sodium batteries have the potential for similar energy density as lithium batteries. While researchers say they aren't quite there yet, they are in production. The Chinese company Haina has partnered with the state-owned Three Gorges Corporation. The partnership has started mass production of sodium-ion batteries. Its first generation of sodium batteries offers energy densities of 125 watt-hours per kilogram, half that of lithium-ion batteries. The next versions are expected to have energy densities of 200 watt-hours per kilogram, nearing the typical EV battery today of around 250 watt-hours per kilogram. Research on sodium batteries began in earnest in the 1970s in the United States. Then Japan advanced the technology. Chinese companies have now taken the lead in commercializing the technology. Out of 20 sodium battery factories worldwide, 16 are in China. China will have 95% of the sodium battery production by 2025. Sodium-ion batteries may be well suited for utility applications. Some Chinese provinces are requiring solar and wind farms to store 10 to 20% of their generation, making low-cost sodium batteries an appealing option where space and weight are not concerned. Sodium batteries also make sense for limited range, low-cost EVs. Where to get the sodium? Soda ash is the preferred source and main industrial source of sodium. Soda ash, technically sodium carbonate, is also known as washing soda and soda. The U.S. accounts for over 90% of the world's readily mined reserves of soda ash. It is found deep under southwestern Wyoming. Near Green River, there's a vast underground deposit of soda ash, technically trona, or trisodium hydrogen dicarbonate, dihydrate. It was formed 50 million years ago. It has been extracted for years and is currently used for glass manufacturing. There is a similar major natural reserve and now trona mine in Ankara, Turkey. China has minimal soda ash natural reserves, so it produces synthetic soda ash at chemical plants fueled by coal. This process has resulted in hazardous water pollution in 2016, fouling a major river. REX 2.0 Arbitrage. Consider these statements. Our facility is home to an on-site solar array. We are using renewable electricity. Both are true, and both are carefully crafted, clearly articulated because they illustrate a scheme called REC arbitrage. Every megawatt hour of electricity generated by a renewable source earns a REC, a renewable energy certificate. The RECs can be stripped away from the power commodity and sold separately. Who wants a REC? Someone who wants to claim to be using renewable energy. Back to the statement. The facility does have solar on its roof, but it sells the solar system's RECs for $5 each. It then buys RECs from a different renewable energy facility for $3 each. The owner walks away with a $2 profit for every REC transacted. While the owner's premium $5 RECs were sold and replaced with lower quality RECs, the facility indeed still holds RECs, and as a REC owner, the facility has the exclusive rights to make claims about using or being powered with renewable energy associated with that REC. That's REC arbitrage and the ability to brag legitimately within the Federal Trade Commission rules. That said, EcoMotion advises clients to retain their RECs. That's it. Thanks for listening to Flanigan's EcoLogic. We'll see you next time.